should we give up on any hope of those 4 votes for witnesses?
I'm going to tell you, I am never going to give up. This is so important, as you will know. When people say, what are you fighting for? We're not just fighting against the president and his wrongdoing. We're fighting for the future of this country and all the promises that it holds. I know that each senator in that chamber has heard us. They've been in their seats. They've been taking notes. They're paying attention. They've taken 2 oaths now. I expect for them to remember the oaths that they're taking. So I'm not going to say it's over until it's over.
This did not happen until it was perceived by the White House that Joe Biden was actually going to run and be a real threat.
You know, and the president can continue to, I called it yesterday, smoke and mirrors, right? The truth is in plain sight. But you've heard that saying, don't believe your lying eyes or your lying ears.
Right.
Number one, it was a perfect call. I did nothing wrong. I can do whatever I want. And now we ended up, and we worked through a series of excuses, but now we're at, well, if I did it, so what?
Yeah.
I can do whatever. If I did it, it's not impeachable.
Yeah.
And so we've heard all of the excuses in the book, but we also know that while the call happened on July 25th, this pressure campaign, this scheme against Ukraine, actually started around April,
right,
when they started trying to fire the most committed anti-corruption ambassador, Marie Yovanovitch. And at the direction of Rudy Giuliani, several agents of the president sent messages to President Zelensky, either messages or through direct contact, that the military aid was conditioned on President Zelensky going to the microphone and announcing bogus investigations against Joe Biden. And what else happened in April? Vice President Joe Biden announced his candidacy and immediately went to the top of the polls. This has nothing to do with policy disagreements. This is about the president abusing the power of his office to try to cheat in the next election.
Yeah.
He gave aid during his first year as president with no questions. At that time, Ukraine was under the authority of a corrupt president. He gave aid the second year. What changed this year?
Right.
Hunter Biden had been on the board of Burisma. He had no interest in that when he first released aid. What changed this year? And so they're asking, the President's Council are asking us to not use our good common sense and just believe what they say, pay no attention to the public statements that have been made, like by Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney, who said, yeah, the aid was tied to the bogus investigations or narrative about the DNC server. We do that all the time. Get over it.
Yeah.
We know that's not true. Yesterday, and it really made my heart just kind of sink. To suggest that the president using foreign aid from a country, keeping foreign aid from a country that's in an active war with Russia.
Right.
If the president believes that his reelection is in the national interest, that is not tied to defending or fighting Russian aggression, that it's about, well, I need to get reelected, and certainly that's in the national interest because I'm perfect, I'm the chosen one. I mean, that's basically what I heard from the professor yesterday,
That's right,
who has forgotten, obviously, what he believed 20 years ago. That narrative, it's one thing to debate and fight for what you believe, but that is foolishness
Yeah.
and ridiculous. And for him to stand on the floor of the Senate and make that statement is scary
Yeah.
and shameful.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's really shameful. The president's reelection is in our national interest. Well, I and a whole lot of other Americans would say otherwise. 75% of Americans say they want a fair trial.
Yes.
They get it,
Yeah.
even though the president's attorneys are arguing to abandon that process. The American people get it. Fair trial means witnesses and any supporting documents. Fair trials mean, it's plain as day that what the president did was wrong. And no matter what professors or his attorneys say, the American people know it's wrong.
there's a great deal of pride in you as an African-American woman in this role as a manager. I hear about it all the time. People say, have you seen what Val Demings is doing? Tell us a little bit about how that came about. Did you pursue being a manager? How did that evolve? Were you picked? Were you surprised? I mean, tell us a little bit about how that happened.
You know, it was very interesting. As we were going through the impeachment inquiry, several of my colleagues came to me and said, we think you should be a manager. And I'm like, what's your problem? I'm not working hard enough as it is. And then some reporters approached me and said, are you going to be a manager? I said, I don't know. And I talked about, you know, not having a law degree and saying that I would not pursue the position, and I did not. Because I believed, as a member of the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary Committee, and the work that we've been able to do, that I had helped to advance the ball down the field, and we were pretty close to the end zone. And so I wanted to leave that decision solely up to the Speaker to pick who she believed had the best skills for what we were fighting for. And so I did not. And when I received a call to meet with her, and she asked me, are you interested in being a manager? Because, of course, you know, there are I have a lot of great colleagues who could do the job, and many people had reached out and talked to her. I had not. And I basically shared the same story, that I've had the honor of advancing the ball down the field, and we're close to the end zone. If I'm not chosen to take the ball into the end zone, I've done my part. And it's her decision. And she said that she wanted me to be a manager. Look, I've taken 4 oaths in my lifetime, 2 as a law enforcement officer and 2 as a member of Congress. I've taken those oaths very seriously. It's really personal for me. Having the opportunity to work and see America from on the street level, I've seen the effects of good government and good leaders, and I've seen the effects of bad government and bad leaders. And I want to be a part of the change that we desperately need to see in this world, where every person, regardless of who they are, the color of their skin, or how much money they have in the bank, can have an opportunity to succeed. Because that was my life. I had those opportunities. And so to be chosen as a manager, to be a defender of the Constitution, because the only way we can live up to our full potential in this country is that we retain or maintain our republic and our democracy. It is our democracy that allows us to do that. And anybody who threatens that, foreign or domestic, should be held accountable. Our democracy just happens to be threatened at this point by the 45th President of the United States.
It has to be troubling that as a law enforcement officer, you were chief of police in Orlando, first black woman chief of police, first woman too, I believe. In one case, in one instance, you're able to enforce the law. And, you know, for the average person, the law is upheld and enforced. And if a crime is committed, there's a punishment to be paid. But this is a perfect example of what privilege is. When someone like him, you can't even enforce the law.
We can never use robots to replace law enforcement. And we know that, you know, law enforcement has their ups and downs, but we can never use robots, because you could program a robot to, if they see a law that's violated, then you just go in and you enforce the law. But we need police officers that also have the ability to have heart in the job, to be able to use discretion in the job, right? And so, but as defenders of the law, as enforcers of the law, we're going to go out and send a message that nobody is above the law, that it doesn't matter how rich you are or poor you are, with the color of your skin or where you live. You break the law, you will be held accountable. Now, the discretion comes in and what accountability looks like, right? Yeah. But to have had the ability to enforce the laws and always consider that we're dealing with human beings, always dealing with human beings, but enforce the law and now have the ability to write the laws. From the perspective of enforcing and seeing when people are not held accountable, the repercussions of that. Sending a message when people are able to escape accountability. And then to look at a person with the greatest accountability in the world.
Yeah.
When America's out of order, as we're seeing, the world's out of order.
Yeah.
People look to us as a beacon of hope. And this president has clearly said to America, and it really should scare the hell out of everybody listening, that he can do whatever he wants.
Right, and get away with it.
And that ought to send chills that he can do. And what we have seen over the last 3 years is that he really believes that.
If they were to have witnesses and open that door, it'd be hard to acquit then, wouldn't it? I mean, if you open that door, the floodgates would open, wouldn't it?
Well, you know what, as a person, from being a young police officer, taking that report, putting a case together, I've worked as a detective sergeant, I've been an internal affairs commander, investigated my own and held them accountable. Evidence and witnesses were the life and breath of the case. If you're interested in really knowing the truth, you would subpoena John Bolton, who's saying, I'm ready. You would subpoena Mick Mulvaney, the chief of staff.
Right.
You would subpoena Duffy from OMB. You would subpoena people with direct knowledge, fact witnesses. The only way I believe you would not want to hear their testimony is that you are afraid of what they have to say.
Right.
And that's shameful.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is.
How do you feel about the conversation about you being on the ticket? People are talking about that now. Because of your performance in this trial, you should be a candidate for vice president with whomever the Democratic nominee is. I wish you looking at me, I wish the audience could see the look on your face.
You know what? One of the things I've been told, that I don't have a poker face, and I do not. I'm working on it, though, because I really need it this week. But, Reverend Thompson, you know what? I have a stack of cards on my desk that have notes and messages from people all over the country saying how proud they are and how thankful they are that I'm willing to fight so hard to protect our democracy. I am honored that people believe I'm doing a good job. But what I will say to you and what I will continue to say is that we're in a hot fight right now against someone who's trying to destroy our democracy, the leader of the free world. And I'm going to stay extremely focused on him and our efforts to hold him accountable. Because you know what? If he sets precedents that the president really can do whatever he wants, that the president really can collude with a foreign power to cheat in the election, tomorrow won't matter anyway, because it will not be the democracy that we all love so much and are fighting for.